We are not doing enough regarding social justice and racial equity. These are externalities borne by society, therefore by business too. Externalities are costs not picked up that create future risks. Our net impact community, our corporate funding partners, all of us as we continue to delve deeper into our annual theme, Reimagining Capitalism, are in fact imagining a more equitable system that affords broad constituencies a basis to be heard, to have influence, to exclaim nothing about us without us. Corporations are increasingly adopting stakeholder-centric policies, engaging the communities that offer them license to operate, their employees, consumers, supply chain partners, and of course shareholders. Climate change is the easiest, most ubiquitous matter to take up. All stakeholders have come to understand that extractive commodities sold at a profit above cost masks the enormous hidden cost, the cost of the damage to the planet and human well-being. These externalities pose risks not only to us people, but inevitably the companies creating and exacerbating it. The threats for them are existential. Business has come to recognize these risks. There is a grand shift in a collective effort to address climate crisis, as the costs are borne by all of us. I put it to you that racial equity is also an unpriced externality, one that is hampered by the complexity of privileges afforded mostly to older white male decision makers with the power to have impact on it. Watching the furor and emotion unleashed this past summer related to the killing of George Floyd, among others, and myriad persistent, systematically racist over-policing, excessive sentencing, and focused heightened undue force used against people of color made apparent the unpriced societal externality of pretending that all people are free and equal in America. Considering business historic silence with regard to racism as a societal externality in America, it's not surprising that within business enterprises there exists a concurrent bias creating large pay gaps between white and black and brown employees, and a dearth of board and C-suite positions held by people of color. As with climate, corporations have exacerbated costs related to racial equity. These costs, avoided in part by business, have been passed on to all of us. And it is an externality, unlike climate, that is particularly difficult for largely white business leaders to, one, acknowledge they have benefited from a biased system, even if by no choice of their own, and two, look back to undertake measures to redress the circumstances that led to inequity, as to do so tacitly accepts that privilege played a role in getting them ahead. So it's incumbent on us to break that dysfunction. Let's take up the new and expanding mantle presented to all stakeholders by business. We as community afforded companies the license to operate. We as consumers, as current or future employees, and leadership. We as inevitable owners can insist on being heard. We can press our business leaders to take bolder steps and seek equity, looking back to address the often hard to accept notion that some were more equal than others, rather than the simple installation of measures to assure equality today, which largely crystallizes a marginalized people, two Americas with two separate starting lines in the foot race. As with climate, business may need to influence regulation and policy making regarding the externalities of social justice and racial equity, as government officials have either been too slow, too attentive to re-election, or frankly for sale. This can change if we insist that businesses begin to see policymaking and positive promotive civic engagement as the frontier of their inexorable move in the direction of good. Reducing the external costs to business of social injustice and racial inequity is not a right versus left issue. It's a right versus wrong issue. We know and they need to know the distinction. Let's help guide them in this task. If not us, who? If not now, when?